My name is Professor Wilma Vivius, and I'm a research professor in the Trade Research Entity and World Trade Organization chairholder at the Northwest University in South Africa. It is my and my two co-editors' pleasure to give you some background and an overview of our book, Africa's Digital Future, From Theory to Action. Our creative journey started in February 2019 when we decided to write a book on this very exciting but challenging topic. We brainstormed various ideas for chapters and possible authors, and shortly afterwards the hard work, but also the fun started. Some of the authors live outside Gauteng and the Northwest Province, and therefore we met at the OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg on various occasions, especially at the start of the book writing project and before the COVID-19 pandemic. To give you an overview of the book, we, the three editors, Adelia Jansen van Rensburg and Ali Perry and myself, will each give a short presentation. Adelia will start by providing a broad background to the book, and I will follow with the content of the different chapters. And lastly, Ali Perry will wrap up with the key messages conveyed in the book. Thank you, and over to Adelia.
Hi, my name is Dr. Adelia Jansen van Rensburg, and I'm a senior lecturer in international economics at the School of Economic Sciences in Northwest University. A great deal has been written about the different dimensions and the quickening pace of the digital era, which some people refer to today as the fourth industrial revolution. But comparatively, little research has been conducted on what the digital era means for Africa, and in particular, whether African countries are in a position to benefit from advances in digital technologies, or whether they are likely to slip further and further behind other developed and developing nations in the technology arena or race. This is the main question that our book, Africa's Digital Future, From Theory to Action, sets out to answer. The answer to that question is far from clear-cut. There are many factors that will influence Africa's digital trajectory, from geopolitical forces and developments in the global economy to African countries' ability to formulate sound, forward-thinking policies and to effectively implement them. A complicating factor is that African countries are far from homogeneous, with very different economies, political ideologies and geographies. Therefore, digital policies and solutions need to be tailor-made to countries' individual circumstances. But it is still important for African countries to work together so that digital technologies can be used to promote more intra-regional trade and fast-track development on the continent, which has lagged behind that of other regions for many, many years. For this, a fresh approach to education and skills development, as well as ethical leadership, are among the critical success factors. In the book, we use a nautical theme at various intervals to drive home key points about the massive economic, ideological and technological changes that are occurring in the world today. We compare Africa to a ship that is sailing into a big storm. It is being buffeted by strong winds and large swells, and visibility at times is poor. But there is no other route, and so the storm must be confronted. At this point, it is important to remember that saying it is the setting of the sails and not the direction of the wind that will determine which way Africa will go. In other words, Africa must confront the many challenges that it will continue to encounter by adopting a more technological mindset, which will help the continent to catch up and keep up with other regions and enable it to sail more confidently into its digital future. Thank you.
Thank you, Adelia, for giving us this broad background. One would have this question: what is the main contribution of our book, given that there are so many different publications on Africa's digital future and specifically highlighting certain elements of that? Our main contribution in this book was that it provides a comprehensive coverage of Africa's digital preparedness and the many decisions that African countries need to make. to ensure that digital technologies became tools of inclusive growth and sustainable development. A particular strength of the book is our use of various qualitative and quantitative research methodologies, and then combining them as findings and perspectives on how Africa and their policymakers can capitalize on the benefits of digital developments. The book has 10 chapters. Chapter 1, which we as the 3 editors wrote, creates the context for the book by painting a picture of the turbulent world characterized by geopolitical and geoeconomic tensions and the quickening pace of technological change. Chapter 2 looks at where Africa is from an economic development perspective and how, despite the so-called mobile revolution in Africa, it has a very pronounced digital divide in the continent, which is hampering economic progress in many parts of the continent. The 3 of us were responsible for this chapter, but with valuable inputs from Prof. Piet Strydom and Dr. Marie-Loes Kuhn. In Chapter 3, Dr. Emmanuel Orku, Adelia and I demonstrate empirically the relationship between digital trade and employment, with the results varying according to the different geographical regions and industry sectors in Africa. Chapter 4, by Prof. Piet Strydom, explore whether advances in automation and other digital technologies threaten Africa's workforce and in what ways. Then in Chapter 5, Prof. Piet Strydom and I discusses how businesses in Africa can participate more actively in global and regional value chains by using cost-saving digital technologies. In Chapter 6, Dr. Emmanuel Orku and I examine the issue of cross-border taxations of data flows and digital goods and services flows and how tax revenues can be maximized in the digital era. In Chapter 7, Prof. Sonja Greiter and Prof. Alwyn Hofman highlight the problem of high trade costs in Africa and how digital technologies could be used to streamline custom procedures and advance trade facilitation efforts on the continent. This brings us then to Chapter 8, where Beandre Hubert explores the critical role played by regulation in Africa, especially as the digital era has exposed countries to heightened risks of cybercrime and breaches of privacy, intellectual property and consumer protection rights. In Chapter 9, by Dr. Marie-Loes Kuhn, looks at how Africa can address its massive education gap by embracing the concept of an economic ecosystem, in which the role players share the responsibility of preparing young and older people for an increasingly digitalized work environment. Then last but not least, Ali Parry summarizes in Chapter 10 the main themes covered in the book. She concludes with the message that Africa has the power to create its own future, but that it will take courage to make the right choices. Ali will now give us the main takeaways of the book. Thanks, Ali.
Thank you, Vilma. My name is Ali Parry, and I'm a research associate in the trade research entity at the Northwest University. In a 400-page book, it's quite difficult to extract the juice or the gems or the takeaways, but I'm going to give you five takeaways, main takeaways from the book. First of all, although Africa has lagged behind the rest of the world from a developmental perspective, and has been particularly badly affected by COVID, climate change, and various other disruptive elements, it's not alone. In fact, it has an opportunity to leverage its many regional and global partnerships and considerable resources, and the resources range from natural resources to young talent. It has this capability to carve out a much better future for itself. And in this regard, the digital era offers enormous but untapped potential. Secondly, despite Africa being made up of a number of regional economic communities, which are designed to promote trade among members, interregional trade in Africa is not what it should be, something that Adelia pointed out, and compares very poorly, in fact, with other regions in the world. One of the main problems, and it's well known, is that trading on the continent is very costly because of transport and logistics bottlenecks, very onerous customs procedures, inconsistent trade regulations and standards, and so on. So if the newly launched African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a natural extension, actually, of the existing regional groupings, if it's to succeed, the problem of generally difficult trading conditions and high trade costs really needs to be urgently addressed. The third takeaway. Of all the regions in the world, Africa has the most pronounced digital divide, which means that millions of people across the continent, they lack access, or at least affordable access, to digital devices and services, and are therefore unable to benefit fully from the digital era. The consequences are particularly dire for those who wish to get ahead by improving their skills or in the job market, where a certain level of digital preparedness is usually expected. So the digital divide is an extension, actually, of the massive educational shortcomings, which is also covered in great detail in Chapter 9 of our book. But there are encouraging signs of a growing investment in technology and innovation hubs, and these have the potential to be scaled up, provided the right policy environment is put in place. Fourth, very important, industrialisation. It's on every African country's agenda. And this is good because it's believed to provide the bridge from a very heavy dependence on primary commodities to more value-added goods and services. As various scholars point out, both in our book and elsewhere, it is only by making the transition from low productivity to higher productivity economic work that Africa's legacy problems of poverty, unemployment, and inequality can actually be satisfactorily tackled. Following an industrialization path, though, is typically expensive and it can be job-threatening. Therefore, industrialization strategies on the continent need to be accompanied by productivity enhancement initiatives and labor market reform. And this is where technological leapfrogging, which is a really interesting field of study, it can play a huge role. Finally, last but not least, no amount of digital adoption or technological leapfrogging will fast-track African countries' development unless the basics, so-called, the basics are in place. And these are good education system, reliable energy supply, good physical and digital infrastructure, ethical governance, adherence to the rule of law, a business and investment-friendly climate, and an outward trade focus. We don't necessarily dwell on these issues in our book, but we put them out there as being an essential foundation for success in the years ahead. And clearly Africa has an unprecedented opportunity to do things differently, to set the sails, as Adelia said, in new ways. But in order to remove the risks, the continent really needs to navigate the future with more confidence and with a good policy environment and doing the right things. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Adelia and Ali, not only for your short presentations today, but also for the 3 years of a wonderful journey that we started in February 2019, and today we have this book as the result. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful journey with the two of you, and I would also like to thank all the other authors which I mentioned in the different chapters for their contribution and trying to stay with deadlines and all the other technicalities that we required. And last but not least, I would also like to thank the EHOSIS team, in particular Prof. Andries van Aarde, who was with us from the beginning, who also attended our meetings at the OR Tambo International Airport before COVID started, and also assisted us during this whole journey and made it possible with his team to have this book published lately. Thank you very much, and I hope you all will enjoy the book and give us feedback. Thank you.